What's It's not like a super official show or anything. That's why I'm sort of stoned in my socks. Um, but I just got off the phone with some theist type folk, and I just kind of want to go through a few things I'm gonna need you to stop saying if you're going to argue for theism. Oh my God, Course Elise, I'm sorry. I'm so happy. Okay, what's going on, Matthew? How you guys doing? Savannah, Colin. A few things I'm gonna need you to stop saying to atheists when you argue for the existence of whatever your God happens to be. The first of these, stop telling us to look at the trees. Trees are not evidence for shit but seeds, and maybe photosynthesis and the fact that plants grow and some other stuff. But outside of that, trees are not evidence for God. That doesn't even make any sense, right? I could easily say, how could you deny the spaghetti monster? Look at this cup of water. And that's supposed to make sense to you somehow, right? How you doing, Uncle Stan? It's right. There's not evidence for anything about that. I can literally say that about anything. Harry Potter's totally real. Look at my dog. What? Like, what does that even mean? What's another thing you should really stop saying? Oh, please stop telling. Please stop asking me if I or anybody else were a real Christian. Like, oh, yeah, Darren, you are a Christian, but I'm not talking just going to church. Are you a real Christian? Well, first, we have no metric or standard by which to evaluate whether or not someone's a real Christian outside of appearing to adhere to the rules of Christianity. So when you say, you're not a Christian if all you do is go to church and read the Bible. Well, no, yes, that's exactly what we've determined makes you a Christian. That's one of the ways, that's some of the evidence we have, right? Sure, you may not be a Christian. However, the evidence is strongly in favor of Christian here. Also, when you ask me, was I ever a real Christian? I don't know how to answer that. If you're asking me if you're asking me the question and you're forming it in a way that would suggest I had some sort of relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ, the answer is no. But I also don't feel like anybody else does either. So not only have I never had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, I don't believe anyone else has ever had one either. But if you're asking me, was I a true Christian and that was I actually a practicing Christian? I don't know how to answer that. I would say yes, and the reason why I would say yes is because maybe I wasn't a true Christian, but if so, you would have to try to explain that to everyone around me. So I don't know if I was a true Christian or not, but apparently I was so good that everyone around me, when I stopped being a Christian, asked me what happened. Right? Indicating that they were convinced there was something I was doing where they were totally convinced that I was a Christian. So please stop asking me, was I a real Christian? The answer is, by all supportable evidence, yes, I was a real Christian. What else should people stop doing? Thank you, Colin, right? True. What else should people stop saying? Oh my God, okay. Just because we don't know something, your answer isn't automatically the right one. I heard this today. Super bright kid, by the way. Not at all knocking his intelligence. This kid is ridiculously smart. He's like way smarter than me when it comes to a lot of shit. But he was making this argument about how gravity works and how it bends in certain parts of space-time or whatever. He got into the topic of black holes. And basically the entire first part of his premise, of his argument, was wildly irrelevant, right? He was telling us how gravity worked when it's and how space-time works. He was telling us all these intricate parts of astrophysics, right? Cool, all awesome. But then he ends the part of astrophysics with, gravity can't create something. What? So something had to create this, and we've determined that something to be God. Nah, dog. Just because we don't. First of all, we don't know that the universe was necessarily created. We don't know that. When people say, it doesn't make sense that it actually just came about randomly, right? It also doesn't make sense that some guy created it. Neither of those make sense. How do we get closer to finding out which one of those is true, right? And so When you tell me, well, something had to create the world, my answer is no, something did not. Two, no, someone did not. And three, if something did create the world, why do you just get to assume that something was God? So, well, something had to create the world, and we see that something is God, therefore it's God. No, you just admitted that the cause of the universe is unknown, right? Therefore, the answer is we don't know, full stop. There's no, I don't know, therefore I know it's God. You just said you don't know, full stop. And so please stop just asserting your God into questions we can't answer yet. It just doesn't work. The answer to infinity times infinity, I'm sure has an answer, but I'm terrible at math. But if it doesn't have an answer, it can't just assume it's God, because that's not how evidence works. Someone's lack of answer doesn't make your answer right by default. That's not how that works. Something else. Oh, stop telling me to stop taking faith away from people. Why are you spreading this? Why are you trying to take people's faith? That's not how faith or belief work. I can't take something from you. I can't take beliefs or faith from you. You lose them. And you lose them, whether you lose them or keep them, that is wildly out of my control. You've engaged in a conversation with me. The point is to make arguments. I make arguments, you make arguments. If in those arguments you don't rightly believe in the thing you used to believe in before the argument started, not my problem, not your problem. You just lost a belief. Happens all the time. Constantly it happens. When I get on a plane that shakes during turbulence, I believe I'm going to die. Then when it stops, I unbelieve it. I can't control whether or not I believe it or why. Well, I can control sort of why. I can't really control why I believe it. Something convinces you, and then something convinces you of not that or something else, and that is not my problem, nor is it yours. So please stop telling me I'm taking someone's faith away or taking someone's beliefs away, because I can't take those things from you. That's not really how they work. I cannot take those things from you. Stop saying, but God gave us free will, blah, 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 blah. Well, if God gave us free will, then he really fucked over Satan. But outside of that, an omniscient, omnipresent, omniconscious, benevolent God cannot give you free will. Because if he's omnipresent and omniscient, he's a planner God, right? Everything he does is predetermined, right? Everything that happens in the world is predetermined, pre-laid out. Then if there's a such thing as free will, you can't deviate from that. If that's true, if God really did plan out everything, you can't deviate from his plan. Therefore, your will is not free. But if you can deviate from his plan and break from his will, then he's not omniscient. He's not all-powerful. He's not a planner God. You can't have both. He can't be an all-planner God that you have the ability to defy. It's a paradox. It can't exist. You just can't do it. If he plans everything and he's all-powerful. Oh, God can't be all-powerful and benevolent. Benevolence means he can't do evil things. However, if there's something he can't do, he isn't all-powerful. What's going on, Roy? How you doing? I guess that depends on Christians who believe in predestination and those who don't. Right, exactly. There are some Christians who believe in predestination and some who believe, and some that don't. The Bible speaks a tiny bit about predestination, not anything too far into detail, but a little bit into it. And yeah, there are some Christians who don't believe in predestination. However, even if, wait, who is this? I just saw someone new. I want to say hi. Marissa, awesome. How you doing? Good. I'm glad you guys are doing awesome. Yeah. No, I agree with that entirely. What else should people with faith stop telling people without faith? Stop telling us we believe in nothing. God, that is so annoying. Someone's like, oh, well, you believe in nothing, and that's what your faith is in. Two things. One, I don't have faith in anything. Nothing. I don't have faith. I have beliefs, but the reason why I don't have faith is because faith is the excuse people give when they don't have evidence for something, right? Faith is what you use when you believe in something that literally doesn't make any sense. You can have faith unicorn. There's no position you couldn't take based on faith, right? I could have faith in a unicorn. You could have faith in a God. And if faith is the only way to determine truth, then we are both on equal ground there. I just believe it. And there. Well, where's your evidence? What's it? Show me this. No, I don't have to. I have faith or believe in myself. Right. You have faith or believe in belief in yourself. Now, see, that's the thing. Faith is absolutely nonsense, Roy. Now, see, that's the thing. Yeah, I don't have faith in crap because, again, faith is what you give when you don't have evidence for your beliefs. But when someone asks me, you don't believe in anything, I'm like, well, that's not true. I believe in most of the same things you do. There's a lot of things in our interaction that if we walked together for a full day, we would be more or less agreeable on a significant number of things, right? Yeah, no, Colin's cool. Right, we would be more or less in agreement, right? It's just a few things that we would probably disagree on. And so when someone tells me that, oh, you don't believe in anything, I'm like, that's not true. I believe in a lot of stuff. It just so happens everything that I believe in has sufficient enough evidence for it. And that's not just claims, that's also things that I do, right? The only reason why I walk across the street when the light turns green is because I have evidence to suggest that cars will stop and that I will get across the street safely. One, because it's done a bunch of times and, this is testable, it's demonstrable. I have, whenever what's a good example? I can't think of it. I swim because I believe that I jump in pools of water because I believe I can swim. But this isn't a given. This isn't automatic. There might be someday I jump into a pool and can't swim and die. There might be, what was the first thing I said? There might be something where, what was it? Either way, it's not a given, but I have confidence, I have faith based on evidence, or I don't have faith, I have belief based on evidence. The sun will rise every day, right. You have evidence to demonstrate that the sun rises every day because it's risen every day. That's how we measure days. The entire concept of days is measured in the concept of when the sun goes up and down, or round and round. Didn't want to fuck up and confuse the flat earther. There are a few on here, and I don't understand how you're convinced the earth is flat. I don't get it. It's everything you do is modeled under the assumption of a spherical earth. Like everything you do, right? Oh shit, what's going on, Brent? You want to come on live with me? Anybody want to come on live with me, by the way, they're more than welcome to. I'm all about it. So if you want to come on live with me, just request and I'm all about it. I don't want to confuse flat earthers. I don't get how you're a flat earther. So my things, I believe, right? I don't believe that you can choose what you believe. I don't believe there's a such thing as free will, period. And I don't believe you can choose what convinces you of something, right? So when people ask me, and actually we'll go ahead and add this to the list of things theists need to stop telling me. Stop asking me what evidence would make me believe in God. Because the answer, all right, man, I'll catch you later. Oh, what, Colin? You're making dinner jelly. I want some. Yeah, you gotta stop asking me what, yes, Miss Lewis is here. Awesome. Yeah, you gotta stop asking me, shit, what was it? I lost my train of thought. I was talking about stuff that people should stop telling atheists. God, Lewis, I love you. You're so awesome. Sorry, that just popped into my head. Why you don't believe in God? Solid question. I don't believe in God because I don't have sufficient enough evidence to suggest his existence. There's not. I can't be shown some God right quick, Yes, that's more or less why. If God did it, and how people should stop asking you for evidence, why you don't. That's you were talking. Oh, wait, stop asking me for evidence of why I don't. That's why. Oh, wait, shoot. People should stop asking you for evidence. Yeah, I forgot. Your awesomeness clouded my judgment. That's the magic behind it. Right. That's true. Now, so the thing is, one of the arguments I've heard was that, well, God exists in this supernatural, thing. He's omnipresent, omniscient. He's all powerful. Oh, you shucks. And that he's all these things, that he exists in sort of this supernatural existence, right? But the thing is, we can't perceive of the supernatural. That's why it's called supernatural. If we can see it and perceive of it and experience it, it becomes natural. Natural things like natural and supernatural are descriptive titles given to phenomena, right? So things that exist in the natural world are considered natural. So I have this table. This table is I can perceive of it, right? But something in the supernatural, we can't even perceive of the supernatural, let alone something in it. That's why it's called supernatural. Right. It's too vast for our brains to fully comprehend. Right. I agree. And so that's why I'm often vexed by people who comprehend it anyway, if that makes sense, right? I've heard a lot of people, I actually was having this conversation with someone I was related to, and it was, so my Uncle JL had passed, right? And it was really, really sad. Love my uncle, which I have. But someone in my family was telling me about how they were drinking milk. And they had some food there, and they were drinking milk. And then all of a sudden, the cap of the milk, they put the cap on the milk, and they twisted it and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, the cap of the milk basically flew across the kitchen. And so they were like, oh my God, DJ, that was your Uncle JL. Now, looking back on it, I kind of stopped because I was like, well, no, that wasn't Uncle JL. That was a cat flying across the room. And then her response was, well, I don't know what it was. And your Uncle JL loved milk, so it must have been him. I was like, yes, but he also loved money. So I would be more convinced if a pile of money appeared on the kitchen table, that it was possibly my uncle. That would be more of evidence. Although it wouldn't be sufficient enough for me to believe, but it would be a lot more like, oh, that was probably him. But the other thing was, so then she wrapped up with, well, I don't know what it was, so it was your Uncle JL. I don't know what it was, so it was a ghost. And I was like, no, you don't know what it was, full stop. You just said you don't know what it was. You can't know what it is and also not know what it is. Like the term UFO, right? Unidentified flying object. They're like, it's an alien spaceship. I'm like, it's a UFO. I know, and then they draw these pictures of them and all this other stuff. But how can you get an accurate depiction if it's an unidentified flying object? I.e., you don't know what it is. So why are you telling me what it is? It's just one of those things that... So I've never at all believed in ghosts. Even when I was a kid, I never really believed in ghosts. Even when I was a theist, I didn't necessarily believe in ghosts. But just because I've never seen one. But then I thought, as a teenager, I'm like, well, those things only have as much power as as you're willing to cognitively put into them. The milk thing, I believe, is something that people give meaning behind to make themselves feel better, to sort weird. No, absolutely. So that very concept alone, the whole concept of religion, that's the thing. It's a mechanism for comfort, and I have no problems with that. Some people do dumber things for the sake of comfort, right? And I'm not saying religion is dumb. Let me scratch that. Some people do worse things for the sake of comfort, right? I have no problem with religion as a comfort device, even as a personal belief. That's all good. My problems with religion are not even necessarily a belief in a deity, right? Your belief in something doesn't necessarily have any intrinsic impact on society. It's just when you start actions, that's when it begins to do stuff. But I don't really have necessarily a problem with people believing in a God. I'm just more so, why? I don't. So I'm an agnostic, atheist, anti-theist. Agnostic is my claim to belief, or my claim to knowledge. I don't know whether or not there's a God. My atheism is a claim to belief. Therefore, I don't believe there's a God. I'm also an anti-theist. But not because I think religion's bad. All religion is all bad all the time. I actually think far from that. And I would never even come close to supporting anything that would outlaw something like religion. My thing with religion is I just don't find it particularly useful. I can't think of a single thing that could be done without religion, or that couldn't be done without religion. That's done with it, right? Um, I go to the Seattle Atheist Church, and it's a really awesome place. If you're like an atheist church, that's kind of an oxymoron and all this other stuff. But if you look at, they're like, oh well, I was like, yeah, we meet, we sit in rows, we learn, we have sermons, we read books. Sometimes we sing, but it's never usually a collective, right? It's all these things, and someone was like, well, that's what they got from the church. I don't know how you're doing that, blah 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 blah. And I was like, well, the thing is, you can find Christian versions of everything, right? If you want breath mint, there are Christian versions of breath mints. If you want to listen to heavy metal, there's Christian versions of heavy metal. If you want cartoons, there are Christian versions of cartoons. So, one of the things I've always had with religion in particular is that I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying there's strong evidence to suggest that vice versa, everything that the church does was taken from secular culture and made Christian, right? Or made religious. These are things that people were more or less doing already. When people say that we got, for example, the Ten Commandments, right? When people say, oh well, we got the Ten Commandments, we those came from God. They tell us not to steal, they tell us not to do this, they tell us not to do that. But what it doesn't account for is people were already not stealing and not murdering, and they've already recognized a certain benefit in not doing those things, right? They were already aware that these things were bad and that you shouldn't do them unnecessarily. And so it's one of those things where you have to sort of question, did those really come from the religion, or did the religion just pick them up and make those values intrinsically theirs? Right? And so that's kind of my thing with religion. I don't have a problem with it. I just find it particularly useful. But yeah, no, she absolutely made that up to comfort himself. I'm sorry, I went on like a whole side order. Okay. So it was not to believe that we don't believe in anything, something about faith. Oh, I don't know if it's the Kalam or the ontological argument, one of the two, but it's the one where the maximally great being and all this other stuff. I would toss that whole thing out the window, because before you said you have to live in the world where it's possible that a maximally great being exists, but we're not sure we live in a universe where it's possible that a maximally great being exists. We don't know if we do or not. We could, very much so. So it's possible that a maximally great being exists. But there's a lot of problems with that argument. But you can go through an infinite loop, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with, particularly because it just happens. Sorry, I'm really stoned. I'm in a warm sweater. So, I'm done with religion, because I've talked about it, and I think those are just the arguments I'm done hearing. But if you have any new ones, down to listen. Let's talk about something else. Oh, we had an interesting conversation about the possibility of someone being transracial. That was fun. We were asked about it at a work retreat, and we played the game Four Corners. Well, in each corner, there's post-it notes that say, strongly disagree, agree. And someone says something, and then you have to walk to that group. Well, the question was, can someone be transracial? And at first, I moved to the, super disagree section. But then I moved to the agree section, but not strongly agree. I moved just to agree. And the reason for that was twofold. One, so there was a lot of people that were confusing heritage with culture with race, right? Those three things are different, but I'll get into those in a second. The reason why I think someone can technically be transracial is because race is a social construct, right? Whoa, what's up, Hector? Transracial. So transracial, do you remember the story with Rachel Dolezal? So Rachel Dolezal was a white woman. She was born Caucasian. She's super Caucasian. But she grew up in a lot of black culture, and she immersed herself in black culture. So she basically tanned her skin. She got really, kinky hair, and she became the leader of the Spokane chapter of the NAACP. So there's a lot of controversy swirling around her. And then when she got caught up that, oh, you're actually white, you're not black, what do you have to say for yourself? She used the I'm transracial. And so my take on the Rachel Dolezal thing is I am because there's black the race, there's black the culture, and there's black the heritage, right? There are those three things, right? And she has probably experienced at least a tiny bit of black the culture. But one of the things about cultural pickup that we don't necessarily are comfortable with other people transcending into is that you find more often than not people who claim to have experienced the black culture, really be part of the black experience, become incredibly white when it's most volatile and convenient for them, right? So for example, I don't have the privilege of being unblack at a moment's notice. I have to be black all the time. I don't really have much of a choice. But some people are able to snap out of black and just be themselves or be white again and get out of certain things in trouble. And so unless you have you really experienced the culture if you really haven't experienced the culture? And part of the culture is being forced to stay black in a situation that's not necessarily friendly to it, or vice versa, whatever. So my thing with Rachel, so she's definitely dabbled in some black culture for sure. I don't know if she has any black heritage. Maybe she might, but I don't think so. There's no evidence to suggest that she does. However, can she be racially black? And I say that part, no. Now, if you're going strictly off the definition of race, then yes, right? However, what race is defined as and what it is are pretty different things. So words don't really have definitions, they have usages, and sort of the dictionary just identifies the most common use. However, race acts differently, right, when applied to real sociological phenomena. It's race manifests itself differently, right? So while I can be transracial in the literal sense and that race is a social construct, that means right now I could be like, you know what? I'm white. I'm a Caucasian male. I'm white. Race is a social construct. I can be whatever the hell I want to. And by its definition, I can be white. I'm white. Now, where that disconnects is, am I? Am I white? No, right. I'm not white. If I go outside, no one's going to think I'm Caucasian. No one's going to believe that I'm Caucasian if I tell them. If I mark Caucasian on a paper that's legally required for me to mark my race, and I put it, I'll get in trouble because I'm not Caucasian, right? It's just not a thing. So, can someone technically be transracial? Yes, but not where it matters. And that's out there, not in here. Your race matters in here for as long as you've been subjected to the social implication of that race. But however, when it comes to being transracial, your transraciality is only important in here. It's not important literally anywhere else. Since race is a social construct, you have to look at it through a social lens. It doesn't have a subjective, it may have a subjective perception, but it's wildly irrelevant. It's unimportant what you may subjectively feel your race to be or look like is great, but it's not really up to you, unfortunately. Now you can demand certain sociological respect based on your race, but you'll find that mostly adheres better to when you personify the race you're trying to have respected, right? So if I were to go out there and say, hey, you treat me with respect as a white man, people will look at me like I'm insane. If some of you go out there and say, hey, as a strong black person, you treat me with respect, you would be looked at like you were insane. But if it's like, hey, this has happened to black people, so maybe you shouldn't X, then you can do stuff like that, right? But now whether or not they choose to do X, or they choose to act like X, or they choose to perceive you as X are wildly irrelevant. You don't get to choose how you're perceived, unfortunately. Unless you can physically do something about it. You can't change how you're perceived. It's just not. That's just out of your control. You can't decide that. Other people have to decide that. And the collective has to decide that. So can you be literally transracial? Yes, but can you actually be transracial? Nah. Because if you are transracial, it only matters in here. It doesn't matter anywhere else where it matters, right? Race is something that's socially constructed, therefore only the social perception is what's relevant. The subjective one is wildly irrelevant. So I think that is all I've got, TBH. I might be on later, I might not. Depends on how stoned I get or whatever. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to add, talk to me, message me. I can call you, I can message you. You can respond to the comments, you can respond on here. Alright, yawn like a Saint Bernard. Feel free. Science, religion, progressive politics, liberalism, atheism, agnosticism, Satanism, some religious dogma. I can talk about all of it. So, bye.